to the day 5 of the 10-day National Online Talk Series on how to do an effective research, which is jointly organized by PG and Research Department of Commerce, MG College, and Indian Accounting Association. On behalf of Department of Commerce, MG College, Thiruvananthapuram, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome today's resource person, Dr. Shilpa S. Kankonkar, ma'am, to deal with the topic how to frame a questionnaire and how to conduct research using a questionnaire. Ma'am is currently working with Neville Vadia Institute of Management Studies and Research as an associate professor, and she is having an experience of over 17 years in corporate and academic experience in organization in areas like communications, branding, training, and marketing with the top-notch companies like Dr. D.Y. Patel Institute of Management Studies, Max New York Life Company Limited, HDFC Standard Life Insurance Company Limited, ICICI Prudential Life Insurance Company Limited, and American Express Bank. She is on the editorial board of many reputed national and international journals. Some of them are International Journal of Advanced Study and Research Work, Global Research and Development Journal for Engineering, such and such. She is also a mentor for financial analysis, behavioral studies, life skills, entrepreneurship from nationally acclaimed bodies like National Entrepreneurship Network, Maharashtra Center for Entrepreneurship Development, MCED. She has written a book on services marketing and micro insurance and having more than 5 monographs on different topics. She is currently working on developing a model on marketing potential and customer satisfaction towards the HP Gas Agency through a research project from Pankaj HP Gas Agency, Ravid. Ma'am is also has been a resource person and speaker for various MDP, FDPs, conferences, seminars, refresher and orientation programs organized by various government agencies, corporates, as well as different funding agencies and universities. She had also designed and conducted various workshops and seminars relating to management field. Ma'am, it was indeed an honor and privilege to invite you to the lecture series. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rakesh. Before I start at the onset, let me take this opportunity to thank the entire team of Mahatma Gandhi College and the entire organizing committee, and also to Dr. Vinod, who has, with his entire team, worked relentlessly to, to conduct these lecture series. In fact, when I met Dr. Vinod, I think in one of the groups which we are actively involved in terms of research and AICTI faculty development programs that I do conduct across India for quite some time now. So having said that, I think it's the call of the hour of the topic that you all have selected, and I particularly like the layout that you all have decided in terms of what needs to be delivered and why research something which is so underrated in terms of how we Indians perceive it to be. And I think it is lectures of this stature which change the paradigm, which change the way that we look at research. Because even if you look at the new education policy, a lot of impetus is given to research, and I think it is due, it's due for all we researchers, it's due for all we academicians to put forward and go ahead and do research and do some constructive research. We are not talking about research where now with so many agencies coming across, I think making a research proposal is not a big deal, but having it published in good repute journal is something that we look forward to do it. And I think it's my earnest request to the entire set of participants here, keeping up the spirit of inquiry, keeping up the tempo, keeping up the continual approach towards scaling up your capabilities is the call of the hour, right? So I think it is at this level, where the research series, the talks, the faculty development program makes a lot of impact, and it is imperative, it is imperative in the current scenario that we look at such topics. We need to look at exploring how we can scale up as individuals, and it's my humble submission here that we are looking into something which is called re and search. So we need to research something which is existing, which is there. There is a truth. But what makes a difference is the evidence that we're trying to make for that truth. And that is where your differential parameter comes. Now, I have published around, if I'm not wrong, I think 23 papers along with all. I have a few in ABDE, I have few in UGC, and I have presented at all the IIMs at this point of time. So I think my approach to would be to research would be something very objective. But of course, having said we have a vast audience, we've got almost, I think, I can see some 98 participants. So they're coming from different domains. So we will look at, when we're looking at a topic which is as interesting as a questionnaire, and I was going through the schedule of the topics that you all have gone through before also. So my approach to this entire talk is going to be in the areas of how we can design something very constructive, where questionnaire being the most important instrument is the game changer for any research. And I think our endeavor in this talk series for the next 2 hours would be exploring that concept and making the best use of the information that I can bring to the table. So let's hope we have a good time together. I would request all the participants, to be interactive, because I always felt that we communication is the key to the effectiveness of a program. So I would really want people to interact, and by the time we end the entire series of the talk that we're going to have for the next couple of hours, or rather, if we look at 90 minutes, and we need to look at aspects in the field of how we can take our research ahead, how we can learn little more to what we already have, and how we can scale up. And scaling up is the key. And I think as an academician, I feel that it is imperative that we look at these aspects, right? So on that note, I would like to thank and congratulate the entire team for having selected such an interesting topic. And you know and I've always talked on topics that are very application based, and something which I can really value add. So thank you so much, sir. So with your due, I
Thank
think
you.
we can start off. I
Yes,
think it's
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
exactly
Thank you, ma'am. You can start.
5:20, so I think we can start, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am. You can start. You can start.
All right, sir. All right. Give
Okay.
me a minute. Just give me a minute.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, you can take note.
Yeah. Is this? Can you all see the slide? Is the slide visible to all the
Yes,
participants?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I think I have not started the camera as well. So give me a minute. Yeah, that should be fine. So I think we can begin today's session, and let's look at some interesting facts and figures, and let's understand that what it takes to frame something which is so intrinsic and something which is so important for anything that's got to do with research. So when we look at what research and what is the basis and the premise on which we identify the aspects that you would want to research and go ahead, let's look at it from a point of view of what we are going to do in the next 2 hours that we are going to be together. So we're going to look at the entire process. We're going to look at the thought process. We are going to look at the contextual design of why do you arrive at this process at the first place, why questionnaires would possibly be required, and this is the agenda of the session. So right from understanding the purpose to the elements to the basic features and the characteristics, we'll look at the types. We'll also look at, I wanted to spend some time in understanding that when do you really administer a questionnaire, and the most important aspect of validity and reliability on the constructs on which the entire research is based on. I would want to touch upon that as well. And what are the basic guidelines that you need to take into consideration? And also, I think we need to look at question answer sessions. We'll do it in the fag end, maybe in the last 15 minutes if time permits. I think we should be getting 15 minutes if we go in the right pace for question answer session. So this is what I have planned my talk to look at, and this is what I plan to do with the session and the talk series. So when I talk about questionnaire, or when I talk about the purpose being that why questionnaires are used and why is it such a popular tool in terms of research, I have always had an objective view to the research, because research has been a very evolving study. And in due course of time, I mean, if you look at the current scenario, in spite of we going through the worst COVID crisis, there was a research done, and there was a lot of study done of the fact that is it making a difference to the research community. And the very surprising thing which came across was the fact that research has not in fact got subsided in this feature of pandemic. In fact, it has evolved much more. It has become more inclusive and it has become more evolving. Why has this taken place? So if I look at and if I try to understand of why are we looking at research and why research has become something which is so interesting in the current scenario, I was trying to, when I was trying to study I am a faculty with a lot of colleges and I teach this subject, and I came across this particular slide, which I felt we as academicians need to know that what is the application side of research and what is the world doing in it, and where are we standing in it. So when the whole world is grim and gray in terms of the impact of COVID, we researchers as a fraternity are doing extremely well in terms of collecting data, monitoring data, framing data, if I may say, or rather putting it across, analyzing data also. And there was this blog that I came across, and it said something very interesting, which they said that 2020 has been an year, especially when you're talking about a research trend that is not only evolving, but it has helped brands, it has helped individuals, it has helped organizations, it has helped academicians to scale up and stay above the curve. And we have, as a fraternity, impacted the global economy. There has been a significant hit in terms of what knowledge we are bringing in. Because now research has become more smarter, research has become more efficient, it has become more impactful. So no longer has the research been primitive, where there are long boring surveys being sent and thousands of respondents are hoping for a response. So gone are the days. Market research has evolved, and such insightful data has come across. And I think here at this point of time, I would like to mention that this impactful data is coming from a very interesting instrument. Irrespective of the method, irrespective of the process, irrespective of any other approach that you would want to explore, the data that you're going to receive comes from one instrument, and that instrument is what we call it as a questionnaire. So whether you're talking about transactional data, whether you're talking about customer data, you're talking about certain metrics to make a difference, especially when you're talking about consumer research, or you do a research on the opinion, and a lot of opinion leaders trying to give an insight on the changing trends. All of this put together, we are pointing at one point, one straight information, and that information, which is extremely important, and that instrument, which is extremely important, is nothing but a questionnaire. And that comes with the importance of how questionnaire can be a game changer for the kind of research that you would want to do, especially in an ecosystem at this point of time, if you look at it. And surprising enough, the facilitators of research, like we teachers, like the market agencies, are looking at what more can you do. There was a very interesting study where they said that more than 30% of the people are looking at instant responses. There was a study which said that gone are the days where you would say that only quantitative can make a difference. No, online qualitative research are giving such interesting finds and insights, which has led to unchallengeable thought processes. And it has not only led to a technological advancement, but it has led to a thought process that why not collect and analyze data and lose and use technology and take it to the next level. And that's where we are talking about artificial intelligence assisted collection methods. So look at what we are, where we are going. But we cannot reach where we want to go unless we become fundamentally very clear of what we want to do. And that is where this instrument comes into existence, which we call it as a questionnaire. Before I tell, or before we speak a little about questionnaire, I always feel that, we should know the history before we do the geography of any subject. I've always felt that it is important we look at the history before we do the geography. And the history simply states the fact that if you look at history of where questionnaire as a concept came into existence, it's way back in the 18th and the 19th century, where they wanted to find out about a very simple thing. And the simple thing which was done in United Kingdom was to find out what is the educational interest amongst the underprivileged poor people of United Kingdom. And it was in the year 1838, the first instrument, which was a written instrument, a recorded written instrument to find out, was created. And this instrument was created with the thought process that they would want to have an overview of what's happening with the social condition, an overview of the people involved with the industrial development committees. So it came from that, and that is where research came into existence. And the first questionnaire was introduced by a British anthropologist. His name was rather Sir Francis Galton. And this that you see on the slide here is from the snippets of what he has written, where, I had to search a lot for this particular snippet, because this is actually the snippet from the original paperback, which I had to create and attach it in the slides. And this snippet was actually endorsed by the Statistical Society of London, which said that yes, there needs to be a list, there needs to be a record, there needs to be a mechanism where objectively you try to find out things which are already there. But now, what would you do? You would find out what is already there with a thought process behind it, a pretext behind it, a construct behind it, and a logic behind it. And that is where the concept of questionnaire came into existence. if it happened in 1842 to determine the state of education, in 1838, the first questionnaire was invented to find out the history of the demographic profile of the people and what social conditions were they going through. Of course, these words we will, I'm sure you all are aware about it, but I think it's important that we need to know a little bit of where we come and where we are and why are we here, because of few things that happened in the previous times, right? So, and in fact, if you talk about the study done by Sir Francis Galton, looked into these areas. He had actually created an instrument which determined the value of per se, the coefficient which determines that how much is the educational perspective to the underprivileged poor people. So what is their thought process, what is their attitude, what is the skill sets, and what is the wisdom that they want to look at when they want to go in for education. So that was this research that he did. Having said this, let's go a little ahead in trying to understand that why do we administer something which is already there? Why do we administer questionnaire? Why there is a thought process? And is this thought process justified? So the first stage that precedes, of course, I'm sure you all are aware, and there have been talks about the various stages that you would go across in research design and research methodology. So statement of problem, unless there is a problem, there can never be a solution. Mukesh Ambani said something very interesting, and he said, India is filled with problems. So everybody in his board meeting gave a very weird grin and gave. So he said, well, then we have to give solutions to those problems, and that's where the product development took place. But unless we go and create an application part of the products, the most important pretext on which such products are defined is the problem statement. So searching that problems, identifying the statement, identifying the definition which clearly outlines that what is it that is affecting an individual, what is it that is affecting the community, and what is it that is affecting the government. So identifying those problems is the first stage. And then you would have a relevant data which will endorse and say that, okay, look, it makes sense. You are searching that data because after going through a certain literature, I found out that, look, there is a gap. This much information is not available anywhere. So why don't you go and fetch that information? So you're adding to the body of knowledge. So your research as a researcher is going to add to that body of knowledge, and you are going to revisit. So it is a very itinerary process. And when I say it's an itinerary process, means what? You're going to keep revisiting your problem statements. So you would revisit it after you do an exploratory interview. You would revisit it after you personally meet certain people. So by the time you come to the stage of actually developing a questionnaire, your objectives of arriving to what defines to be the problem gets more clearer. And that is where you test of what you could be having it as an assumption. And once you've tested an assumption, you start developing questions around those assumptions, because every time you want to test those assumptions that you have put it. Now, this is the plain preceding logic. Now, researchers tend to give it a very, flowery language to it. But let me tell you, all the participants, research is no rocket science, but it is pure evidence-based logic. And that is the reason you have a lot of researchers who are doing some great job in identifying and giving solutions to problems. So when you start developing your questions in terms of where you want to arrive, and arrive in what? In giving solutions, is when you start designing an instrument. And there has to be a logic, which is a preceding step to your questionnaire design. And that is the reason I thought I need to incorporate this in the slide, where I felt that there could be some researcher who would, who's just started his journey. And for the people who have already been in the process, have been in the journey of research, this will just validate their thought process in stating that yes, once your research objectives are reached, that is when you start developing your questionnaires to question the assumptions that you have put. And in the language of research methodology, such assumptions are nothing but hypotheses. So until you don't test those assumptions, until you don't list and test those hypotheses, the development, you coming as a researcher to the stage of developing questions, wouldn't really happen. So you have to keep revisiting your problem statement. So you have to keep revisiting your definition of what you think is a problem. And is it relevant? The first most important criteria of problems is that it has to be relevant. It has to be attractive. The problem has to be attractive for you to go ahead and do some research on it. It has to be time based. And last but not the least, it needs to come with an evidence of, yes, I could give you a solution. And that is when becomes the most important criteria for that particular situation to become a problem. So when you are in the stage of identifying problems, please make sure you do this filtering process of these four elements. One, the relevance of that problem. Second, whether the time bound structure is taken into consideration or not. Third, whether the problem is attractive enough. So who is going to define the attractiveness is the stakeholders of whom you are going to target the problem for. Could be individuals, could be corporates, could be government, could be community, could be society at large, anybody. But you need to have a stakeholder who will make it attractive. Means what? There are some buyers for your solutions. Okay, so I may sound a little crude here, where we say that, ma'am, we are into research, so we don't want our idea to be sold. But let me get the facts clear. We need people to endorse that, yes, there is a solution to that problem. So that solution, I'm just putting it metaphorically to make it as a buyer, but the point that I want to put it across is the fact that you would want to give a solution, and you need a buyer who thinks that that is a solution to his problem. Otherwise, the relevance of that problem will not exist. And last but not the least is the fact that where are you going to make it applicable? So once you have a defined parameters of answering these 4 pointers, your development of arriving at a tool, because questionnaire is nothing but a tool. It is a structured tool. It could be unstructured. It could be, so we're not coming to types right now. I have a different slide for that. But when you arrive at those questions, this thought process, this construct has to be clearly defined. So that is important. And that is where your differentiated element comes into existence. Like, if I may give an example, your literature gap, you have to very clearly define in your theses that why did you feel that there was a gap. I have gone through a lot of theses, and we've done a lot of when we try to give inputs for dissertations and theses to a lot of research scholars, and we observe that what defines to be a gap is not clearly specified. Are you looking at a gap from a relevance point of view? Are you looking at a gap from a context point of view? Are you looking at a gap from theoretical point of view? Or are you looking at that gap from a practical point of view? Your thesis or your paper needs to have those gaps addressed. And that is where your research objectives, your research questions will get more endorsement and acceptance from the society at large for whom you are trying to do this research. And that is where it makes sense, right? So with that, let's go ahead. Now, There's a very interesting thought which was put up by the chief decision strategist at Google, who said that the most important aspect, like a lot of people have said that after you design the questionnaire, when you want to analyze the data, it's about mathematics and you require these superb software tools to do the study. Let me put it straight. Okay, it is whatever information you put it on the software, it's going to collate data and give it back to you. Now you're not looking at kudos to all the researchers who've done their research 20 years back. I give my heartfelt salute where they have quantifiably identified, calculated their Pearson coefficients to come and arrive at the values, so that you could go ahead and say that, okay, my instrument is valid, my instrument is reliable, I can go ahead and pilot test it. Now we are living in such an interesting world where everything is computerized. So if you have a good questionnaire, if you have designed it well, your results are going to be fantabulous. But at the same time, if the survey is poorly designed, no amount of calculations can help you with where you want to arrive. So it is important that when you are trying to develop an instrument which is as important as questionnaire, you need to know a certain thing. You need to know that you are going to be in the fourth stage of your research when you are going to actually instrumentalize your tool. So before you come to the stage 4, as a researcher, you need to have a very clear thought of what could be your stage 1, what is your stage 2, what is your stage 3. So if you're looking at identifying the aims and objectives of your research, identifying the areas for which you are developing this at stage 4 has to be very clearly defined. Could be in the form of a blueprint on paper and pen and paper, or in your mind. So your aim and objectives of research should be very, very precise, concise, to the point. When you are arriving at stage 4, the population that you are going to address, your universe that you're going to look at, has to be very clearly understood. Are you looking at a finite universe, or you are looking at an infinite universe? That is when you start looking at administering what you have, which is your questionnaire. Because end of the day, it is simply a tool. But arriving at the tool requires a lot of process. Because the questions that you would want to source, the methods that you would want to arrive at, the methods that you would want to utilize or do, and what kind of information you would want to have or you would want from the respondents is going to be the link to the stage 1. So if you have something being asked which is not relevant, if you ask something which is not related, if you ask something which is peripheral to not your aim, you're not going to lead yourself to the goal that you would want to address in terms of arriving at a solution. So the premise is very important on which you are putting up. Your foundation has to be very important. So I keep saying this to all my students as well, that your research aim and objectives have to be very clearly defined. Because how have you defined your variable, and on what construct have you created your variable? Because based on that, you're going to establish the linkages and appropriate linkages. I will share certain examples where we'll talk a little more about this. But let us get this very clear, and I would want all the participants also to be with me on this. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. Participants, what do you feel?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Sure.
What do you
Yes,
feel?
ma'am.
Let me just come to the chat
Yes, ma'am.
box. And so that is very, very important, because the premise on which you are going to ask of what you want to ask gets clearer, because research is searching and repetitive searching of the evidence of truth, because you know that is a truth, but you are going to have an evidence to prove that that is a truth. So you're going to research, and you're going to keep repeatedly doing the itinerary process. And so research is also called as the iterative process. The spirit of inquiry defines the module of research. Like, um uh, I'm also a education transformer. I've done a lot of research in education and education transformation. I am also in the body of certain professional bodies you know which look at how you can transform education. And there I always put this thought across. I could sound a little radical, but I always put this thought across, which says that you need to have the spirit of inquiry. And this spirit of inquiry is defined by 5 E's. And this 5 E's is nothing but: first, exploration; second, explanation; third is clearing the doubts after the things are explained. And then you would have the imitation. And last, you would have the assessment. So these 5 elements are very important when you want to understand the spirit of inquiry. So when you define the spirit of inquiry, that is where the most important criteria comes into existence, which we call it as research. Because the first stage in the spirit of identifying or defining your spirit of inquiry is exploration. That's the first stage, the first E. And that can only happen through research. So when you want to do research, you have a clear-cut aim, you have a defined purpose and a defined objective. So coming back to what we were talking, and coming back to the methods of defining what you call it to be research. So in the stage 4 and stage 5 is what is going to be my talk for the day, where if you look at research and if you look at questionnaire, it is nothing but a tool. And this tool is a set of questions. And these set of questions are going to be very concise. These set of questions are going to be very particular to the information which is cited or required. These set of questions are very specific to what you want. And so there are domains that you would want to look at or take. So especially if you're looking at questionnaire, don't just look at it from a gathering tool perspective. You are gathering information, and that information has to be related, information has to be relevant, information has to be concise, and information has to be oriented towards your aim and objective. Like, for that matter, if you would want to do a search on how are you going to have an ICT applied to the dietary plant patterns that you would want to adopt for school going children. Suppose you want to do a research of that stuff. So at this level, this instrument will consist of some very important factors that you would want to study. Suppose you want to do a study on ICT applications, study of ICT applications on students who would want to, who are interested to do exercise. So what would you study? You would arrive at a information where you would want to find out what is the pattern of that particular profile. and the profile is going to be school children. So you would want to do and study what happens to be the motive behind such thing, what is prompting, and what is the purpose of gathering that information. So what is the motive that you would want to go ahead and search from the respondents? What are the traits that you are bringing to the table of the people who are going to fill that information? So questionnaire becomes a very effective tool, a very effective instrument, which has a set of questions. So there is a lot of definition which is available in the market. There's a lot of definition which is available in the market, which say that, what happened? 1 minute. Can you all see the slide?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Can see.
Can you all hear me as well?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I guess I lost the camera. Can you all see me as well?
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Okay, so let's go ahead. So when you are trying to identify the purpose,
No, ma'am.
it is
We can't see your That is, your camera is not on, I think.
no, there is some problem happening there. Okay, let me check once again. So what is the purpose for collecting that information is very important. So there are different definitions that is available in terms of questionnaire. Like some people have said that questionnaire is a systematic compilation of questions from a certain population. Whereas some people have said that questionnaire refers to a device for securing answers to questions in a definite order. Some people have said that questionnaire is a research instrument consisting of series of questions. Whatever said and done, my take on what is a questionnaire would be as simple as a systematic compilation of questions that you desire for the information that you would want to seek. Unless you have a very strong premise, unless you would want to check the facts and opinions and the attitudes, questioners will always have a sense of statements and a sense of responsiveness that you would expect. So, like if I talk about a lot of beginners, it has been observed that a lot of people who are beginners will directly make a questionnaire and just make a question of 10 questions and finish it off. But there has to be a lot of thought process gone, because the information that you would want to seek could be a quantitative information, could be a qualitative information. In fact, preparation of a good questionnaire, I'm sure all the the prolific and stalwarts in research will agree to what I'm saying, that preparing a good questionnaire takes in a lot of time. It takes in a lot of a lot of head, a lot of hard work, and lot of perspectives in place, because you could have different sources from where you're taking in, and these sources could be scattered. So when you want to gather data, questionnaire becomes an important aspect. And so I hope I can do justice to such an interesting topic. And I'm sure, I will add to whatever knowledge that you have, more than what you already have, definitely through this webinar. So if I'm talking about a premise, I would request the participants to kindly mute themselves. Thank you. So if you are looking at the purpose of a questionnaire, is very, very clear. Your purpose should be very precise, concise, and relevant because you want to extract data. You could use any kind of a method. You could do an opinion survey, you could do a questionnaire, you could do unstructured forms of interview, structured forms of interview, focus groups, whatever. But the primary purpose is to extract data from respondents, and that data is going to be making a lot of sense from a researcher point of view. And of course, some very important pointers to the fact is that when you want to have a large group assessed or accessed, you can use questionnaire. Accuracy is more in a questionnaire, and of course, it helps to save time, money, and energy also. But let me also add to the let me also be a devil's advocate here. Unless you have not designed it properly, it will lead to a fiasco of what you want to arrive at. Because if the information that you would want to sort, if not precisely stated, if not precisely defined, will lead to inaccurate data. And because it will lead to inaccurate data, you will you will be left with information which is not a persistent, prevalent information, and that will be a higher cost in terms of money, in terms of energy, in terms of time, all of it put together, right? So it is said that when you want to specify the need, when you want to specify the information, when you want to, you know, make sense of what you want to arrive at, these are the 7 stages that are the elements of a questionnaire. So you need to define the universe. You need to define the method of why you want to have access of that information. You need to identify the sections of the respondents. Like I always tell, 5 W's and 1 H. And 5 W's are very important. And these 5 W's are what, when, who, whom, and where. And 1 H, that is how. So if you give your 5W and 1H theory to designing your questionnaire, half your problem is solved. So what is your questionnaire going to be addressing to? What problem is it looking at? What is the demographic profile? Are you trying to find out information? What are descriptive statistics that you want to identify and arrive at? What inferential statistics you want to do? What tool do you want to apply so that you can do a particular test, which could be F test, could be, there are so many different tests depending on the methods, sampling methods. So what is very important? So when you arrive at what becomes your aim, when would you want to administer it becomes easier. So when is there? Then comes the next, which says who. Who is going to be your respondent? Who is going to be your respondent is important. Have you done any filtering? Have you defined your universe? Because if you have a finite universe, you will use a different sampling method. If you have an infinite universe, the calculations automatically will go different for calculation of sample size. So who is your respondent? Who is your respondent? So because you need to understand, respondents and responses are different. Respondents are the people who are going to answer your question, and what answer they have given you will be the response. So respondents become very important criteria, because these are those people who have been invited for your research. आपने सोच समझ के उसको invite किया है. You've thought a lot, and that is why you have identified those people who have been invited to participate in that particular research study or in that particular research, because you feel that those people are going to be making sense. So when you are trying to design the sample, the researcher will focus on the potential respondents with certain level of familiarity. Understand this. Because what phenomena, what problem you are trying to investigate will only have, or will be only done when you have a certain level of familiarity with that topic. So your who is very important. So there has been a lot of work in determining who is that who for a research. Who is that who? Why that who is important? Because those people have been invited and there is a logic for that invitation. And you need to define that logic, otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So, and because they are giving you a particular answer, they give you a certain response. So, you know what? Respondents are actually legally protected if they're a part of a consumer research study, because they are paid and they are a part of a contract. And in fact, in opinion searches and all, mystery shopping and all, if you have heard these words, participants are paid to share their opinion. So imagine the shape of the future product and services can be changed or actually replaced. In fact, in United States of America and also in India, you are paid almost $150 for 1 hour to participate through your opinion. Because what, see, look at the step 3. When you want to determine the content, you want to determine a certain response that you want from a respondent, you have to understand you want him as a respondent, you don't want him as a participant. There is a difference, because respondent is the one who will answer to the question that you are trying to pose, and participant is the one who will join your, because you have decided to pay him. So consumer research panels typically use the word participant, whereas researcher use the word respondents. That's the difference. So there is lot of research being done कि उनको participants बुलाना चाहिए कि respondents बुलाना चाहिए. It's your call, because depending on the qualitative research method and quantitative research method, you can call them as a participant or a respondent. Lot of qualitative research call them as participants, and lot of semi-structured interview methods use words as respondents. Basically, they are used in mixed methodological approaches. So before I talk a little more about mixed methods, you need to understand that it is at step 2 that you decide whether you want to do a qualitative study, whether you want to do a quantitative study, or whether you would want to go ahead and do a mixed method. So, because if the results are generalized to the population, then the term participant gets added, especially in qualitative research. So, just to give you a little information, though it's not a part of our, but it's related to research. When, these opinion surveys are done for opinion polls and all that, okay? A lot of information is sourced which is qualitative in nature. So, for qualitative researchers, the word participant is used. But we are not talking here about participant or respondent. We are here trying to understand a methodological approach. So, whether you are using qualitative or quantitative, determining the content is very important. Determining the content of what defines to be the structure of a questionnaire. So deciding the information required. So you define your target respondents, you select the method, you determine the question content, you word those questions properly, you put a proper tunnel method. It's also called as the sequential tunnel method, funnel method, in fact. You check the length. You can't have a 50, 80 page questionnaire. Who's going to read it? Who has that much of time? And most important, you need to check the validity and reliability of the questionnaire so that you can keep revisit and make changes. So you need to pre-test it and you need to do a pilot and you develop the final questionnaire. So in your questionnaire designing mechanism, you know, summarizing the qualities of a good questionnaire is very important, because by actually creating a good questionnaire, you're solving half the problems of what could possibly come out in due course of time. You cannot arrive at a proper defined objective unless you have a well designed questionnaire. And let me also give you a very, I'm sure all the stalwart researchers here will agree to what I say. No theoretical base is there available which can say that this questionnaire is flawless. Every questionnaire will have some kind of a flaw. It is up to the researcher who gives it an application based view. Like you say in management science, there is no right and wrong. It is your perspective that creates the right and the wrong. We always say that in case studies, right? In fact, when I had conducted a session with the ICFI Business School for around 180 teachers on case-based method. I had done a session for them. I always say this and I advocate this very strongly. It is the researcher who guides the direction of a case, because nothing can is right or wrong in a case. The researcher has the right to guide for the do's and don'ts, for the past and the present that he would want to create for the research problem. So you say that designing of a questionnaire is nothing but a scientific, logical approach. So if you are looking at the key attributes or a characteristics, this is what you will see from the slide here, where most of the good questionnaires will always have the opening, defining, covering letter, which will explain why, what of the problem. So either you could have a qualitative information or you would want to have a quantitative information because you would want to test a specific hypothesis, or you would want to qualitatively have information for a purpose for better understanding, as simple as that, because you want to generate a hypothesis. Uske liye bhi aap kar sakte ho. So irrespective of all of this, your good questionnaire will always have a method. Like I always say, there are two values which are attached to a questionnaire. One, we call it as a functional value. Second, which we call it as a hedonic value. Any utility is called as a functional value. Means what? There has to be the relevance of why you're asking. There has to be an objective. And hedonic value is nothing but, hedonic value is something which I perceive. And typical in behavioral sciences, psychological based sciences, defining a hedonic value gets very difficult. And so you use qualitative studies. Like maybe as simple as you want to do study on customer recommendation behavior. Suppose you want to understand why does a consumer recommend a certain product? You want to do a study on that. So the degree to which the product brings about an emotion, you want to study that. You want to study experience. So those kind of studies will have hedonic values. And when you'll of course have qualitative studies, and then you want to objectively have a utility for what you want to study, will be the objective based. But irrespective, characteristics of a good questionnaire is that there has to be a premise on which you are asking a certain question. And of course, appropriately worded, logical, practical, validity, and reliability. At most important. At most important. This slide is available to you all. I will share this slide with Sir. So you can share it to all the participants. I'll be more than happy. I have always believed that the more information that you share is more information that you will seek in due course.
Sure, we'll do, ma'am. Thank you so much.
No problem. So this is available. You can share it with the participants.
Yes, yes.
Now, having said this, your questionnaire of what you want to arrive at, your questionnaire, when you want to arrive at a structure, when you want to look at what you want to have in the design, your questions, always remember this, need to be responsive friendly, client friendly, interviewer friendly, and analysis friendly, because at the end of the day, you have to analyze it. So when any researcher is using a questionnaire to gather information, he wants to answer the main objective why he started that. Hence, the design is of utmost importance. And so when you want to ensure an accurate data is collected, and these data, these results can be interpretable, it is at that level you will say that, okay, now I have made a good questionnaire. Now I have arrived at a goal where at least my measurement error is very less. And let me tell you, all the participants, now our world has become far more easier than it used to be. Because identifying your scope of research, there's so much of material available that why you would want to identify has become so clearer. Like what I thought when I was preparing this, I thought, let me give you all an example here. So if you want to do a research on the services which are offered, which are available in tourism industry, and per se you want to look at the tangible, there is something which is called as the Rater model. RATER. R is responsiveness. T is tangibility. So, lot of a lot of service-based questionnaire adopt Rater model. So, suppose you want to identify that why somebody is comfortable. You want to identify the quality of a service of one of the hotels, suppose. So the rater model will help you do that. Like, you know, I'm sure you all are aware, but since I'm only talking from a social science point of view, I will also give certain examples from other domains also. But if I want to do a research on service issues of a hotel in tourism industry, rater model is used. R is nothing called as reliability. A is assurance. T is tangibility. Like, you want to check the tangibility, you will check the beds. Like I've given an example here. So if you want to ask a question, was the hotel bed comfortable? So when you want to arrive at an answer, you have created a scale on which you would want to have the respondents answer. So you're already anticipating certain behaviors. So it is important that you label them. And so you will numerically label them. And for every, I'm going to talk about this in detail when I'm going to talk about reliability and validity. But I just thought, let me introduce to you all the conceptual explanation of how do you define variables and how do you define the constructs. How do you arrive at a value? This is how you arrive at a value. See the movement of my cursor here. You are going to numerically label the responses. So if you have taken 100 respondents and out of 100, 50 people have said very uncomfortable. So the response options of those 50 people will say, because you've numerically labeled them, you will say, look, doesn't make sense. This hotel is not good, because I tried to find out information and I came to know this from the options that I received from the people who have used your hotel resources. So your questions have to be very, very friendly. And these friendly can be identified in 4 parameters: client friendly, respondent friendly, interviewer friendly, and analysis friendly. Because if you have numerically labeled them effectively, your accuracy of arriving at information and data is going to be more precise. And of course, if somebody goes ahead and clicks not applicable, he's not your respondent. And also, if he clicks don't know, he's also not your respondent, because his input is anyways not going to make any difference to you. Right? So, when you are trying very hard to gather information, design becomes very important. And it is at this level I would want to speak about the type of questionnaires which is typically observed all across the globe. Because your type of questionnaire is going to define what kind of audience are you trying to opt for. Because with time, the classification or the topography classification of utilization of these questionnaires needs to be understood. So if you're looking at a closed or an open-ended compared questions, or you are looking at multiple choice questions, or you want to rank order them, every point that you see in these 12 questions here have a certain objective of why you would want to do it. Like if I ask you a close-ended questionnaire, so a close-ended questionnaire will be as simple as something which you would want to say, typical close-ended. What is the color of this? Either it will be red, orange, blue, or purple. Close-ended. Whereas if you would want to study the anatomy of an MCQ question, MCQ questions are very interesting because MCQ questions have a certain structure. You could have 80% applicability to the question asked, and there will be some which will be 100% applicable to the question asked. So you would have the key, which is actually the answer, and then you would have distractors who will not give you that answer. So the anatomy of why you would use an MCQ is going to be different. So the thought process of मैं क्यों MCQ use करूंगा is going to be different from rank ordering the options. So if you want to rank order them, you can do a drop down scale, you can do a choice based option scale. So there are different types of scale ranking questions. So these scale ranking questions could be an option scale, could be star scale. You know, after a WhatsApp call, you get a star scale, see. So you have 5 stars given to you all after you've made a WhatsApp call, and WhatsApp calls tries to study. Because if you are doing a ranking order question, you are asking respondents to rank the choices in the order of a certain preference that you think could be right. Then, of course, you have rating scales depending on what is the range that you are looking at. Like rating scale questions are also typically, I'm sure you all are aware, nominal data, ordinal data, you would want to find out. So you are trying to find out a specific particular feature, and you will always use a rating data when you would want to get an ordinal or a qualitative measurement to the aspect of a particular feature or a product. That is when you will use a rating scale. So I'm coming back to the main objective that you will use rating when you would want to find out a qualitative measurement item, and this could be evaluation of a performance, evaluation of an employee skill, evaluation of customer service. And typical, all these rating scales are divided into two. I'm sure you all are aware. I don't want to spend more time on it. You all must have covered it also. I saw it also. That's not my area. I'm not going to talk about it, though I love to talk about it. Our rating scales are divided into two kind of scales: ordinal and nominal. Ordinal is, you know, any options that you are trying to identify which is there in a particular manner. Like difference between two options may be calculated, but there will always be an order into why, like an attitude may be, like an example. Feedback can be given in an ordinal scale because there is always a calculable value that comes for every value that you punch in. Like you go to Pantaloon store. A bit, of course, because of COVID, I'm sure nobody's shopping. But earlier, if you go to a Pantaloon store and you go and you done a certain amount of shopping and you want to come out, the store manager will ask you how much would you want to scale on these 5 parameters. So such feedbacks when presented, they're always in an ordinary scale, because ordinal scale, because the option is always in an ordered manner. And then of course you have the second scale, which we call it as the interval. You all are aware, like temperature, Likert scale. These are all, because you don't have an absolute zero value attached. And there is always a difference between the each variable. And so you have these kind of rating scales. So maybe for your information that you would want to fetch, you would want to use a numerical rating scale. You would also very popular graphic rating scale, which we call it as a Likert. Very popular. I hope I've been talking for a very long time. Does anybody wants to say anything?
Ma'am, after your discussion, we'll go for a question and answer session.
Okay, sir. Then I'll continue talking. Okay.
Yes, we'll go for a
Okay.
question.
No problem. No problem.
Okay.
So when we are looking at these kind of scales, especially when you want to incorporate in your questionnaire, like suppose you are a HR manager and you would want to find out about how would you want to evaluate employees. Like you want to find out the satisfaction level, suppose example. So one of the very popular scales that is used is the Likert scale. So you are going to graphically rate. Then of course you have numerical scales, you have descriptive scales. So irrespective of all of this, the use of the questionnaire will be measurement. So through your instrument, through your parameter, through your variable, you are trying to gather information which could be comparative, which could be a survey, which could be analyzing a certain thought process, which could also address a certain topic. Irrespective, all these types that you see on the slide here is going to give you an information. So a standard practice has been observed that lot of researchers use, depending on what kind of survey they would want to do, use rating scales. And few others that you see as the next 12 ones are also ones which are again there, like matrix questions. So when you want to do a multi-dimensional cross-sectional data, so you would use matrix question, because through matrix questions you are trying to display a grid, where choices are offered in a scale and you would have a grid, and that grid would be like, suppose you want to check, for example, if I would want to give that, A, B, and C, child A, child B, and child C. How much is their diet plan? How much do they consume? Vis-a-vis, suppose you want to find out anything that's got to do with their marks or their thought process. Like suppose for each you want to do a study of, suppose that's more social science. Let me be more precise. Suppose you want to analyze 4 brands: Nestle, Unilever, and few more brands. So you have to have brand 1, brand 2, brand 3, and brand 4 with respect to functionality, affordability, function, eliteness, price. So you will use a grid, right? So you will create an Excel sheet where on the right, on the y-axis you will put a certain data, on x-axis you will put a certain data, and you will quantifiably arrive at a predetermined and defined answer choices. And these answer choices will come to a scale. And so matrix questions are used. Why would you use a matrix, if I may ask? You would use a matrix question simply because you want to ask several questions, but it's on a similar idea to several brands. It's a kind of a mini survey, but you just do it through one grid. So matrix has become popular. So cross-sectional, multidimensional. So So typically a grid mechanism or a matrix question is used when you want to reduce the space, because you would want to ask the similar questions and use the survey. So use it in a survey. Because since it's presented in a grid, it becomes easier for you as a respondent to take it ahead because it's easy to identify, and it is in the grid, no? So you have rows, you have columns, it's easier. So if you see, most of the web-based questionnaires are all matrix questions. Very popular. Very, very popular. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. So whenever you would want to ask a question in a questionnaire, whether structured, whether unstructured, whether a closed format or whether an open format, whatever said and done, your objectives of where you would want to reach, of why you would want to reach, needs to be evaluated. And so there are 6 steps. So if we are at step 4 right now. We are talking about designing the questionnaire. We'll also talk about pilot testing the questionnaire. So when you are in the questionnaire construction phase, you identify the words, you identify the sequence, you identify what choices of responses you would want to arrive at, what are the considerations, and you administer it, and then you realize, oh no, I shouldn't have considered that. So you reevaluate and you come back and repeat the process again. So this steps a structural blueprint of why you want to arrive, of what you want to arrive, is very important. This blueprint will give a clear-cut idea of what you want to define. And so you say it is an iterative process. There are several iterations that you have to keep doing and revisiting. Your wordings may be, choices may be, specificity may be, all of it put together. And that is when you create the final version of your questionnaire. So deciding the structure, determining the word values, defining the border is very, very important, because it is at this level you are using the BCI approach. BCI approach is a very popular approach used in all the popular journals, where the information that you would want to sort moves from being basic to classifying and then identifying of what you have classified. So your sequence and layout. So, sequence and layout of questions becomes pertinent, no? And why does it become pertinent? Because through a proper sequence, you are going to present themselves in a particular section. And because you're going to present in a particular section, these sections have a logical sequence. So you don't want the respondents to jump around the questionnaire. अरे ये अभी तो ये पूछा, अरे ये क्या पूछ रहा है? No, you don't want it happening like that because you don't want to sound ambiguous. So to avoid biasness, question sequence is important because it allows the researcher to decide how many questions you would want to display to the participants every time you would want to access. So you would want to have a sequence to that access. Like the BCI theory actually talks about survey questions where it says that you need to anchor a thought in the mind of the respondent. So what are you going to do? You're going to anchor his thought by taking basic information about him. Because your first questions are going to be short, easy to answer, you are trying to grab attention, and that's where you start classifying data. You take him to the next section. So you use a font and a font size suitable to your target audience. That's where you start designing it. That's where you start ordering it. So you have an ordered list that you would want to denote. So it is said that sequencing of questions is always a funnel technique. And this funnel technique is an extension of BCI, which says you start from general questions, then you bring them down to specific point, and then you go more specific, and then you go more and more detailed at every level. So when you are trying to question and explore the background, then you are going to look, suppose you want to do a question on what is expectations from an MBA graduate in terms of his career placement. Suppose you want to have a questions on that. So what are you going to do? You're going to explore his background. So you're going to ask him through a question which is like, tell me something about yourself. And then you will start talking about skills and abilities and his competencies. Then you're going to ask him technical matters. And then you're going to be very precise. And hence sequencing words help us understand to look at the order of events that are happening in the questionnaire. So automatically the respondent is trying to identify the next question in his thought process. So having a good sequence will help you create a significant signal word trail. It's called as the signal word trail. Because in the mind of the respondent, you are trying to create a story and you identify to the next event in the story. And then you have the end of the story and he feels, okay, it was well designed. So the chronological order was proper. Sequence of the word was proper. So it's an easiest pattern to identify with. Are you getting it? And so they say sequence and series and the BCI approach helps you in creating a questionnaire which is very correct, very precise, and very informative. And of course, you need to have wordings which are simple. And these points are quite simple. I don't want to spend more time, but this is important. So I've added it in the slide. So your content, your word, your sequence, your layout, very important. Like if I see, I've also shared an example here. So if you see a sample satisfaction survey being done, look how he has done the funnel approach and BCI approach, where in the end he comes to talk about the satisfaction level completely in the end. Because the most difficult step is to specify exactly what information is to be collected. And once you have done that, you have nailed your research. I just spoke about this. The funnel sequence method. This method is logical. This method is universal. This method is very popular also. Very, very popular. Now we are coming to, okay, it is 6:45. So I have around 15 minutes, then we'll around 7:15. Sir, can we have the question answer round?
Yes, yes. Can have up to 7, ma'am. Okay, no problem.
Okay. No, I was just trying to understand, in terms of the slide delivery. So when you are trying to look at administrating the next stage, now we are moving from the content to the administrating part where you are going to use it. Now it has become very easy because now online methods are extremely popular for administering your questionnaire. Administering your questionnaire, pilot testing it is very, very important, because when you administer your questionnaire, you are deciding the method, and when you have decided the method, you are going to look at how is the population responding to the questions that you would want to ask. So whether you want to do it through post, online, now everything is online. But if you look at the effectiveness, this is the effectiveness chart that you see in front of you. It has been observed, there was a research done, and it was observed the highest rate of response primarily comes from personally administrating the questionnaire. That's the highest response that comes. But if you want to have a very low cost options to what you would want to do, Reader's Digest always does this, is the postal value. So using direct sentences, simple vocabulary encourages respondents to complete, especially if you're looking at an online mechanism, because online is right now the low cost, high speed method. So when you want to administer, it becomes important, no? But here I would want to also, sorry, I'm sorry because I just moved, so there is some noise that came, sorry. So when you want to look at administering questionnaire, I would also want to look at it. So sometimes if there are some topics which are personal in nature, so you would want to have anonymity. So at that time, you would have something which is called as the self-administered questionnaire, because it it is important to understand that self-administered questionnaires work a lot in the online space because the respondents want to give a frank and a truthful answer. So when you want to study the methods, administering plays a role which is imperative. You have to administer it. You could do any of the mechanisms depending on what you want to do and how you want to arrive at a conclusive evidence. So, but these are the methods which are popular, and effectively, if you talk about personally administered questionnaires, still have the maximum response in terms of a detailed question if you want to ask. So personally administered, like you take an interview, you go, you take time, you request for a time of the respondents, then you ask him to fill the questionnaire, and then if you're doing this method, that's going to be more effective. Right. So this is just, we'll quickly go through this. I've just spoken about it. So completely, TAT is used in social sciences a lot for a lot of psychological studies, which is thematic, word associate, and sentence creation. Scaling is typically done for close-ended, structured, and a mixed bag is used for semi-structured, depending on where you want to arrive, of what you want to arrive. Right. So these are certain examples that I have just quoted for your information's sake. So whether you're talking about open-ended, close-ended, because you are having certain expectations of a specific response, so you have that in your mind. So, but most of the quantitative studies have close-ended structured questionnaire approach. So whether you want to have a grid or a scale, rating scale, or a contingency or an MCQ or a dichotomous, like you give a two category to it, like this is, you agree or disagree, but you get very limited approach to what you want to do with this kind of study. So, you know, dichotomous if you want to identify. So these kind of questions are typically there, and this is another thing that is there. So styles of questionnaire. So this is just for information. I'm just y'all can have a look at it. Further taking it through, these are certain principles. They are the 5B principles of questionnaire. It is called, where these are called as the design principles of questionnaire. Design principles of questionnaire are basically the governing laws that works in questionnaire designing. Like, if I may say, you need to have a logical sequence. So these are the design principles. So these principles work. They are called as the 5B principles of good writing questionnaires. Like, you need to have order in place. You need to have single barrel questions. You need to have a proper language, conclusive language. You need to have certain questions where it is straightforward and there is no areas, there's no rating where agree and disagree. And you can have design principle FA and FB, where you want to find out if it is qualitative for fact, attitude, opinion, and FA for quantitative kind of a study. Right? So these are certain design principles that are available. It's available on net. You can check it. My slides also will help you further your information on these. Because when you are trying to have design principle 1, like order in place, people will give most attention in the beginning. Then double barrel. You should avoid double barrel questions because it doesn't give a right perspective. Like, you should avoid being non-contentious when it comes to your wording. So you need to have a very neutral language in your wordings because it needs to be easily understood. You need to have one side of the argument, because sometimes it's easier to create statements drawn from conclusive evidences. So your design principles work in creating this questionnaire, and these design principles are universal laws for what defines to be a principle, and these are universal laws of designing: facts, attitudes, and opinions. Right? let's go. We want to spend some time on question answers. So, few important pointers I have tried to put here before we come to the validity and reliability topic. So, these are some questions that you should always keep in mind. So, you need to be always very, very clear of where you want to get the content from. So, what is the content? So, it has to be content oriented. 5 W's and 1 H. Always remember this, participants. 5 W's and 1 H theory. So whenever you're trying to define your content, you need to look at the 5 W's. And the next is, will the respondent be able to answer? Will the respondent want to answer? Another sampling method that you have to be very, very careful about is the fact that when you're trying to design a questionnaire, is whatever respondents, it's not a part of, my specific topic, but very, very pertinent. So I thought I'll talk about it. When you want to give a comprehensible language, or you want to sound and you want to be very clear with your expectations from a respondent, your respondents must represent the population. Your respondents must represent the population because they would belong to a homogeneous group and they would have similar characteristics. They would have more similar information. They will fulfill the purpose of questionnaire and there would be a certain homogeneity from the people that you would want to arrive the information at. And of course, you need to, it's an itinerary process, so iterative. So you have to keep revisiting. Now, the most important part of what creates your questionnaire to be measurable are the two topics which we say as validity and reliability. Now, because of the methods that have been, the measurement levels in the current become very easy. So, sounding quality, quantifying, or being logical endorses validity. Like validity and reliability in questionnaire comes from the fact that if you want the questionnaire to be acceptable, you have these two qualities. What does it measure? Both the things measure the consistency and the homogeneity of what you want to arrive at. Like if you want to trust, if you want to, like I said in the previous slide, that you need to have a representation of the population. That is only going to happen when you are going to see the consistency of the questionnaire. Whereas through validity, you are going to measure the degree to which the questionnaire agrees. You're going to check the degree. And so it is said that whenever any researcher wants to study the validity and reliability, you need to first understand the purpose again. I keep saying this, the premise on which the ability to air your thoughts on a particular subject matter. So when I say the ability to air your thoughts means what? The respondents should be able to conceptualize the thoughts on that subject matter. And these questions could be aiming at collecting demographic information, ho jaye, personal opinion ho jaye, fact ho jaye, attitude ho jaye, whatever said and done. So type of information that is required will directly affect the design. Hence, it is said that a good questionnaire needs to have two important qualities, and these two important qualities are nothing but validity and reliability, because you need to measure this. You can't just say, okay, no, I feel it is valid. No, hello, it doesn't work like that. You need to statistically check. And this statistically choice will depend on the design, will depend on the purpose. Like, if I give a simple example for reliability, could be that how much times the same questionnaire, if you give it, will produce the same results in same conditions, of course. So you want to check reliability, you can check it by retesting it, you can check it by being more harsher with the different conditions, you can check it by split half method. All said and done, you are going to arrive at the same results. So when you're arriving at the same results, that's statistically okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
it's time for how long it will take?
Last slide, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Last slide. So that is where you are going to question your validity and reliability at the same time. Right? So these are some important pointers. And this is where, so when your correlation coefficients range between anywhere between -1 to +1, you are going to understand that, okay, now my questionnaire is reliable. So let's go ahead and go with the same set of questions. Right? So this is how you're going to pilot test it. And that is where I conclude. Thank you so much.
Friends, it's a time for interacting with ma'am.
Yes.
If you have any doubt, please switch on your
second.
mic and ask question.
Yeah. 1 second, sir. Yes. I would request the participants to definitely come ahead and express what they feel about the
Ma'am, there is a question in the chat box. Please mention about inventory. Can we use inventory to check the extent of some variable?
Yes, in fact, 1 second, 1 second, sir. Is it there in the chat box? Can I
Yes,
have a look?
it's there in the chat box. Please check.
Okay. So when Seema ma'am, can I have you online, please? Are you there, ma'am?
Seema Karthikeyan is there, ma'am?
Okay. No problem. I just wanted to understand the premise on which she's asking the question. I would want to put up across my thought here that how do you extend the variability? How do you identify and you come and you identify certain variables for your questionnaire? So you are going to come and arrive at the variable, whether dependent or independent, depending on your ability and the construct on which you have put the basis of those variables. So I would want to say that that's the reason I wanted to speak to Seema ma'am, is the fact that when you are looking at inventory, are you looking at the repository? What kind of repository of information do you have when you want to arrive at those questions? Is what you would want to check as a researcher. So if that is clearer to you, I think you
Yes.
are half
Yes,
battle.
ma'am. Ma'am, one more question from Dr. Pradeep
Yeah,
sir.
I saw that.
How many questions are appropriate for a research paper?
Depending on whether it's a dissertation, whether it's a research paper, whether it is the thesis, your legible, concise, attractive, specific should be anywhere between 40, depending on the sections that you would want to use. So maybe
Okay.
max I would want to say is as 50, but nothing beyond that.
Ma'am, there is another question from Reshma Ravindran. Can
Yeah.
we adopt an existing questionnaire for the study?
You can, but you need to cite it. But if you're going to use an existing questionnaire, why would you want to do the same study?
Yes.
You need
yes.
to add to the body of knowledge. So you can use it as a premise. You can use it as a platform on which you would want to build up. But why would you want to do it if it's already there? Is my question to you, ma'am. Any other questions?
Any other question? Participants, friends, please.
You can definitely adopt, but I would want to say that if you cite it, fair enough. But why would you want it if it's already there? You would want to, you would want to look at a more precise scalability. That is where you think. I think that will make a difference. Ma'am, can we use inventory to check the extent of variable? Can we add similar questions from the reviews made? Absolutely, you can add. I'm coming back to Seema ma'am. Which inventory are we talking about, ma'am? Can we have Seema ma'am, please? I would definitely want to answer this question.
Teacher?
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I was asking that I have in my study, it's about life skill education, and I have prepared one inventory to check the extent of life skill education.
Absolutely. So, that's why I wanted to speak to you. Suppose if you have created an inventory, you would have identified and made a grid. Have you done that, ma'am?
Like what, ma'am?
Have you created a grid?
Grid in the sense?
What happens is, what defines to be an inventory? Are you looking at it from Seema Karthikeyan researcher point of view, or are you looking at it from an application point of view? So if you have created a grid of what is the aspects that you have involved in the inventory, if that is very clear, then you can link it to different variables like empowerment. You can link it to different parameters.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, there is one more question. Can we add similar questions from reviews made?
We can definitely add. Yeah, we can definitely add. But if you are going to add from the questions of reviews made, why would you want to do it unless you're very clear of arriving at the point of you want to do it? So you can definitely add. As a researcher, there is nothing wrong or right, but you need to have a logical perspective of why would you want to add. Is the time frame different? Is it more relevant because you feel you need to add it? Can you see an opportunity which is of information through added addition? Unless you have that clear in your mind, and if you have that clear in your mind, you can go ahead, but you need to cite it.
Ma'am, there is another question. Is it mandatory to research scholar should create his own tool?
Of course, I endorse that completely. I advocate that very strongly. Every researcher needs to have his own ideology, his own toolkit to assess a problem. So in fact, just to tell you all, when I got a research proposal grant, I got a major research grant. So when I got that grant, first time, I've worked on a lot of major grants. So when I got a major research grant, major research project for, from the university, it was at that level, where I had created my tool, and that tool was a very, I'm planning to patent it. It is related to the insurance segment. You need to have your own tool, and you should feel very proud about it as a researcher. I think that is my complete endorsement. Definitely, ma'am.
Okay,
All
thank
the
you, ma'am.
best to you for creating your own tool.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Because
Any more questions
every,
from the participants, friends?
because I'll tell you, Dr. MDR, sir or ma'am, whoever it is, um, every researcher has his own journey, and it's got nothing to do with age. It's got nothing to do with the glass ceiling. Every researcher, there is no limit to what you can do in terms of you would want to add to the body of knowledge. So keep researching, ma'am. All the best to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope
Thank
any
you,
more
sir.
no more questions from the part of my dear friends. So
Yeah.
it's a time for a vote of thanks. I invite Vishnu Gopan, Assistant Professor, Commerce, Mahatma Gandhi College, Trivandrum, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So, good evening, one and all. Respected resource person of today's session, Dr. Shilpa, ma'am. Most respected principal of our college, Dr. Ambli, ma'am. Our head of the department, Dr. Dilip, sir. Research Talk Series coordinator, Dr. Vinod, sir. And my dear fellow teachers and all the participants of the session. On behalf of Department of Commerce, Mahatma Gandhi College, Trivandrum, I would like to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Shilpa R. ma'am for your brilliant session on the topic how to frame a questionnaire and how to conduct research using questionnaire.
Thank you,
Ma'am, your
sir.
session was very detailed and highly informative. It was a live session. Throughout the session was completely very live. Thank you, ma'am, for your effort toward this session was beyond
I
words.
hope I have added made justice to the topic, because the topic
Yes,
was
sir.
very vast. I hope
Definitely.
Exactly, ma'am.
that.
Exactly. Thank you, ma'am. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am. Then our sincere thanks to our respected principal of Mahatma Gandhi College, Dr. Ampli, ma'am, for your support and encouragement. I must thank our head of the department, Dr. Dilip, sir, for providing immense support to make this webinar successful. Thank you so much, sir. And the program coordinator, Dr. Vinod Ayas, has taken lots of effort behind this informative research talk series. We are literally thankful to you, sir.
Thank
And
you,
last
Vishnu.
but not least, thank a big thanks to all my colleagues and all the participants who have joined for today's session. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all, and hope we can end the session. We can see you tomorrow by 5 o'clock. Till
Yes.
then, bye to all of you. See you tomorrow. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
ma'am.
Thank you so
Special
much.
thanks to
Thank you
ma'am.
for
Bye. See you, ma'am.
thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.